Hi everyone, this is Dr. Jane and welcome to another episode of A Planet Among the Stars with Avalon Rises. And today I'm going to be talking about Mars Retrograde, which started in the sign of Gemini this past weekend, October 30th, and is going to last until January 12th of 2023. So Mars is a planet that does not retrograde every year. In fact, it only retrogrades every couple of years. So when I say that we've been having a year of retrogrades, I really mean it. This is definitely not an every year kind of thing. To have every planet go retrograde over the course of this year is actually very unusual. And this is our last one. And then, next year should be a little bit more easygoing on the planetary action. But this Mars retrograde is actually placed really importantly in relationship to the other retrogrades that have happened this year. Let's talk a little bit about Mars. So Mars is the planet of personal action. Mars gets kind of a bad rap. Because its vices are perceived very negatively, but in our lives, Mars is the planet of personal action, and it's actually our drive. It's our physical vitality, and it's also our true desires, and it's also carries the energy of justice with it. And so in the virtue side of things, this is adventurous energy, it is assertive energy, it's directed, it's our initiative, right, to take action and get things done, and it is just. It calls for justice in this way in our lives. Now, the vice side of Mars, however, is oftentimes, I think, what a lot of people focus on, which is that it can be impulsive, forceful, rash, impatient, or cruel, right? And those are all of the vices of the virtues that I had just kind of discussed. And now, how the Mars energy shows up is going to be highly variable, and it's going to relate a little bit really to you. And so, now this, when Mars retrogrades, it's really asking us to slow down. And it's going to really slow down the energy of our personal drive. You may find it harder even just to get up and get going in the day. This is the fact that it took me 5 days to record the Mars retrograde video is really emblematic of Mars retrograde energy. Physical vitality may also diminish. So watch out for cold and flu season. The fact that Mars retrograde is overlapping with that, just be aware of that. The energy of physical vitality is diminishing at the same time. And you may want to take action in your life to sort of counteract on that, right? Now, how we respond to Mars energy being less accessible in our lives is going to be very informative for the other ongoing theme that is happening right now with the eclipses and with Scorpio season, and also with Samhain having just happened on Halloween. And this is the theme of shadow work, right? And so this Mars retrograde is going to sort of highlight a lot of aspects of that for us. And we're really going to want to resist the urge to push forcefully through anything. Now, the retrograde can highlight the planetary vices in our life because the energy of the forward motion is less accessible. And so impatience and the associated frustration and anger that often comes with impatience is something to really watch out for during this time, especially because it can be really frustrating to have to pump the brakes right after a whole year of retrogrades. I know a lot of us are really ready for things to start really moving again, coming through. We've been learning all these lessons. We're ready to just implement these lessons in our lives. Oh my gosh, let me have the breakthrough. And Mars is here to be like, whoa, slow down still, and take a long and calculated look at everything we've learned this year before we start to act on it. And luckily, this retrograde is in the sign of Gemini. So Gemini is a great sign for this because Gemini, ruled by Mercury, has a strong mental correspondence to it. And it can actually be an excellent sign for analysis. And additionally, this is a great time of year for this level of work, because of the Samhain energy that is still happening, because we have transitioned into the dark season. And the dark season also asks us to slow down and look within. And so, so this timing of this Mars retrograde and the kind of analytical Gemini energy that is associated with it, it makes it really, really excellent to actually relate to the shadow work theme of the eclipses and Scorpio season. And Mars in particular is bringing a new element to the shadow work. So I've talked a fair amount about shadow work in the previous videos, right? And in terms of basically, starting off by kind of debunking a popular idea that our shadow is our friend. But Mars is actually going to bring this into a new level, and Mars is going to ask us to bring the discernment of justice into our shadow work, because there is a tricky business here, which is discerning between our actual shadow, the pieces of us that are actually holding us back, and our unfavorable aspects, our own vices, and the pieces of us that are not shadow, that are gifts that we have been taught through our lives are shadow, and that we have put into the shadow, even though they don't belong there. And so Mars and that element of justice in Mars is really asking us to find these aspects of ourselves, because many aspects of ourselves that are critical to our mission, which Mars oversees, to our mission, have been shrouded in shame. And we need to then find these pieces and say, hey, it's not the piece that's the shadow, it's the shame that surrounds that piece. That's the shadow. And discerning between your true shadow and your false shadow can be really tricky business, and really requires a deep examination of yourself. And so this is another reason why the retrograde in Gemini is so well timed, because Gemini is an inherently relational sign, but Gemini is also an intellectual and flexible sign. And so with the Gemini energy, it will be easier to look at all pieces of yourself and be willing to change your mind, and be willing to say, oh, this thing that I thought was good isn't, and this thing that I thought was bad isn't. This thing that I thought was a strength is a weakness, and this thing that I thought was a weakness is a strength. And to reclaim those parts of you. And so this is a huge theme of this retrograde, because what Mars wants us to do is take everything we've learned from these other retrogrades, reclaim the pieces of ourselves that are most vital to that mission, so that then when we can take the action in January, we are coming out whole. And we are coming out with our best weapons, removed from the shadow and ready to stand in our power, right? Because very often it is our power that we have undercut by misidentifying aspects of ourselves as shadow. Additionally, because Gemini is a big theme to this retrograde, your relationships will also serve as a mirror for you in this quest. The quest of this Mars retrograde is identifying your false shadow and your true shadow, and your relationships are going to reflect this back to you. And on the one hand, you're like, oh, great, I have some help. Now, on the other hand, that is going to be interpersonally challenging. And you are going to be able to use your relationships as discernment for where your true shadow and your false shadow are showing up in your life. And that may be triggering. And it may be interpersonally uncomfortable. And so, try to resist the urge for conflict, for aggressive or impulsive communication when this happens. Because what that is it is the Mars retrograde showing you something about yourself that you need to then take that analytical, flexible Gemini energy to and see, where is the truth? Where is the justice that Mars is trying to show me? Before you just react or take action. Because Mars is saying, hold up, pump the brakes, and think things through. So, really just try to just have that patience, resist those kind of impulses, be aware that a lot of this is going to show up in relationships and communication, and watch how you're communicating with yourself and your relationship with yourself, and understand that all of this is here to serve you and help you reclaim in power the pieces of yourself that have been unjustly marginalized as shadow, and instead say, wait, you're part of my power, and that other thing, that's actually my shadow. So I hope this has helped. And, we're in this together for the next few months, and I will keep checking in. We do have a full moon lunar eclipse just on the horizon that we'll talk about as well. So I will see all of you soon. And as always, feel free, leave comments, sign up for our email list, and we'll just get through this crazy time together. All right, bye.